And even where places where they, where they grow so that the maximum medicine in the energetics and compounds are present, you take that as an example to why people who garden or get out in go bush, spend time in the wild, there is a non-English or verbal language-based lesson that they will learn, but that they can feel internally. This is the lessons of the plants and the earth and that time in nature. They'll feel internally what they need to do to not try and force this transformation, not to go chasing health, but to allow it to unravel. But the key there is consistent practice to lay that foundation, consistent action, creation of habits and patterns within your lifestyle, within your kitchen, within how you're taking your herbs, how you're hydrating yourself, supplements that you may be taking to mineralize yourself to ensure you're not deficient. It's that consistency without grabbing for the result solely, although there might be a little bit of that. Within the yang, there is a little bit of yin, and within the yin, there's a little bit of yang. But most people in the West, what we're deficient in is just that unattached, and you brought up this unattachment, this unattached to results intention around our lifestyle and our health. And it's really hard for people because although a happy accident from that kind of intention lifestyle is that we do get results, but they're coming down the track and we can't necessarily be connected or control what they are. And there's another lesson that when we spend time in nature and eating plants and talking to plants, we can learn how to weave through life with intention and observe, feel, and take step after step without a need to control what the outcomes are going to be.
Yeah. There's, I think definitely in our culture, there's so much of that in marketing and things as well. We're just surrounded by this idea that, you have to be getting results from things and you have to know what you're getting out of things. And it's actually interesting while you were talking about how we need space within our own cells to be able to grow and adapt. And I think I was thinking of children, because I think children have a really sort of innate sense of humour. I don't know, I crack up at my daughter all the time, some of the things she says.
How old's your daughter?
She's 3. So I think it's almost like children understand this in a way, that they need to have this sense of humour to create space, to not be attached to things and to just have silly nonsense play. And that's why they have this space to sort of grow and adapt to things as well, because they're growing and developing all the time.
Yeah, and I think it's because I've got a 1-year-old and she's got a wonderful sense of humour, and we laugh a lot as well. And I'm definitely getting reminded more and more of that unattached and childish nature within myself. And I think what happens a lot of the time is people go, "Gosh, we've forgotten that. We need to go back and we need to be more like children." I mean, as adults, we need to, there's an aspect of childishness which is magic to integrate from our childhood. Most people have, it's the same if I wasn't to integrate a time that I was a fanatical health nut. That's useful to me now. I've integrated the lessons of what I learned there, and there are aspects that I've drawn and now are part of me here, and I bring them forth rather than me just doing the pendulum swing and going, screw that. I'm opposed to, eating raw that way and, being vegan in that way. It's, it's almost like as we become a teenager, that pendulum swing around comes away from childishness. And so we forget to integrate it while remaining adults, because it's confusing. I was confusing me, I got to be a child, but I can be an adult, and I can feel what you were saying here. It's just a little reminder, have a giggle, go out and have a play without an agenda. And it's so important. The best thing, it's all there, it's all that you've had the experience. And you probably feel like your daughter's reminding you. You don't need to, oh, right, I'm going to see what she's doing because I've forgotten it, it's lost. And I need to, copy her. It's there's a little bit of a reminder so we can be mature, wise adults that have a career, just like pay our bills, do our taxes and all these like matrixy kind of things, while having that childishness there all along, because it saves you from becoming boring as batshit, is what I see. And that's like, that's the biggest thing. Talked a little bit about my fanaticism in terms of health, and people would, from an outside point of view, people would still look at me and go, wow, this is hardcore. What like my lifestyle and the way it approaches my health doesn't feel fanatical to me. It feels really appropriate, for me, and enjoyable now. And I'd say definitely more so than when I felt obligated to do it in certain things in the past. But like at the end of the day, I feel like my consistent practice, I'm not integrated, but my consistent practice has been to, because I felt in that time that I was quite bored with myself, even though my health was rocking and my body, my mind, my spirit became quite bored. That's the best way I can really put it. And I think it's worth people, not are you boring to other people, but are you getting bored with yourself? Think about the way you are right now, and think about if you are going to, like, you're toning aspects of yourself that are going to be around for decades. Are you going to be continuously happy showing up to your family events like this, showing up to your, social events, showing up to solo walks through the woods the way you are? Like, are you comfortable with what you're toning in terms of how you're going to be when you're 80 years old? Does it excite you? Is it playful? Is it great? Is it responsible? Mature? Is it wise? Like all those kinds of things. And that helps. I think that helped me, those considerations, especially connecting with my, with the future vision, with making sure that I'm making little changes now and inviting aspects back in self, so I don't bore myself shitless.
Yeah, cool. So it's really about balance. You're saying it's about, because you talked about the yin and the yang. So it's about balancing those two aspects and choosing at which time, which one's more appropriate as well for that situation, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to us a little bit about plant medicine specifically, and what role plant medicine plays in our modern day lives?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like making distinctions between when we talk about plant medicine, so we're talking about, like eating herbs, like calendula and horsetail and powder arco. This plant medicine also, could also bleed over into the conversation around our produce, local produce, veggies that we're growing in our garden, and it also could flow over into hallucinogens and entheogens. But I'd really like to talk about the aspect of plant medicine that evolves from tonic herbalism. I'm really passionate about that aspect of herbalism that's covered somewhat in Ayurveda, like very well covered in Taoist herbalism and Taoist philosophy, especially in a way that is very relevant to the way that we live in our Western lifestyle. And what happened when Shen Nong created the Divine Farmers Materia Medica, and that reference, one of the first Materia Medicas in BC times. The Ben Sao Jing is the name of the Materia Medica. It's worth people going and have a look at it, and also getting the Ben Sao Jing De, which is the translations. It was at a time when we're very much moving from, say, like village life, or even like more of a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, into civilization, for better or worse. And it became very appropriate for us to have some classifications around herbs and where they fit into a lifestyle, so that, if someone goes down, rather than just being forced to live off the land and forced to be connected to the landscape and the herbs, and so they they grow up like in a village setting, you're living off the land, you know the language, and so we've lost it in civilization. People in Taoism, they talk about people going off and using the path of like accountancy, being like their path to enlightenment. But a lot of artists emerging in civilization, so at that point, it's useful for them to have a reference for how to continue to incorporate herbs into their lifestyle, despite being a little bit disconnected from the living, breathing landscape. And so we've, got three classes of herbs that emerged. And so that third class, was like loosely translated as inferior herbs, although it doesn't translate exactly. It's not with, a chip on a shoulder when we say inferior herbs. They're the ones that have a lot of side effects they're very aggressive herbs for like strong treatment of an illness. Then the middle herbs, the regular herbs, and those they have symptoms generally. And it can change between different people in different constitutions in different parts of the world, how much the symptoms are going to arise. But they're the ones, you wouldn't be taking them over 2 or 3 months generally, because symptoms will arise and the herbs' energies and directions will take over where the body physiologically wants to be and bringing itself back to homeostasis. And then the superior herbs are that third tier, the tonic herbs. And these herbs that have high safety ratings, herbs that can be integrated at a small dose consistently over a lifetime, ideally. Like as a functional food, kind of like you can still get, that's like that conversation around like, how many should I take? It's like, well, that's like asking how many grapes should I take, that kind of where the herbs start to fall into that category, like reishi, ishiwu, powder arco, ashwagandha, chaga, morinda, dendrobium stem, deer antler, pearl. These are all herbs that are considered tonic and superior herbs. And when you take them at an appropriate dose, the dose might be like small and consistent, but the dose is high enough for you to get the therapeutic benefits of that herb. So the direction that herb's energies come in, and the medicines of that herb come in and actually create some physiological upgrades or changes or adaptation within the body or within the elements within the organs of the body. But at the same time, it doesn't take over the body's intention for where it wants to be to come into homeostasis. They can ideally, in a big picture, help the body refine where it wants to be in homeostasis, and to say it more romantically, refine and upgrade the body's general song and dance or circadian rhythm. So like fine-tuning that. And so they can be, the tonic herbs very much fall into being companion plants, companion herbs, whether it's animal material, mineral material, or plant material, or mushroom material. They can be, the energetics can be friends. Definitely sometimes it doesn't say people have one herb and they're just like, yeah, that's just not for me. It's the same way some people just don't want mangoes. It's fine, you don't have to have mangoes. They're great, there's a B vitamins and lots of great shit going on in mangoes, but you don't have to. It's like, but sometimes you find your herb, and you might find a herb you're like, yeah, I want to take this for a lifetime, and you've got a good friend there. The idea is that it's something when you're living off the land, if you're foraging for your medicine, generally what's going to happen is, because you're eating a lot of wild foods, you're going to have a lot of very deep immunological medicine and adaptogenic medicine already there, because you're living off wild plants that had to grow through the stress of the seasons, so on and so forth, in often harsh environments. And so the therapeutics are there. When when everyone's doing pretty good in our health scene, like, eating organic, maybe even biodynamic, eating a little bit of, maybe some culinary herbs, and all really beautiful, but deep therapeutic medicines that are getting in, feeding, feeding the receptor sites within the deep immune system, hitting receptor sites within that lymph tissue in the digestive system, like the medicinal mushrooms do. Say, getting in and feeding in adaptogenic compounds to the tissue of the adrenals and the kidneys, so function can be restored, essence can be restored to this organ system, so that from there, as the function gets restored, the capacity to create a beautiful symphony of sex hormones and then hold those sex hormones can be in place. And as well, medicines that come in from a lot of these tonics, especially medicinal mushies, that can feed into the nervous system and ensure that the nervous system is well nourished to the extent where it can handle the swings that are occurring, and the constant onslaught of information that's occurring within our system. And the idea is you take them over time and you can alter the constitution of your body. You can ensure that the stresses of life aren't slowly grinding you down towards degeneration in the later parts of your life and bringing on that death cycle earlier than is appropriate for being a human being, which happens a lot in the Western world. We can see a lot of people in their life cycle, they're living, and they'll hit 50 and all of a sudden they'll enter that death cycle, and then maybe they've got about 20, 30 years of slow degeneration where quality of life isn't there. And that's not a black and white conversation as well. There's lots of variables about when that happens, but basically their capacity for their cells to regenerate, their tissues to regenerate, their organs to adapt to